Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this June 3rd. Hey, tomorrow's graduation, right?
Yep.
Cool. Another year just about done. Thank you all again for being here. This is our third official session. Remember, the first one we have is kind of like ground rules and logistics. So this was a session where SFEA will submit its final proposals, and then the district will have the next session to submit its final proposals, which I imagine are primarily going to be in response to yours, but there may be a few depending on what we see. Some of it is to avoid some redundancies, and sometimes you end up having too many of the same thing back and forth. So we look forward to receiving those from you. I believe there's also one or two articles that we left with you last time that we might need at some point counter on. Was there a leave one? Yep.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All righty. So then, Emily, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. We have 2 articles that we are ready to TA.
Okay.
So number 10, teacher discipline, as well as 20, tuition pool and professional development as well. So I've already got those written up, so
Okay.
I just need your signature, Tony.
Awesome.
I'm done with those. And 16, we won't have it counted for you because we've got about 8 different ones for tonight.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that'll give us something to work on.
I don't know why I walked away.
You want to get your steps in because you didn't do enough in the middle school today, right?
Boring middle school day.
For 12 hours yesterday.
Oh my.
Oh, you're so
Wow.
bright. Wow.
I'm impressed.
Did they have fun? Did they have fun?
Oh, they had a blast.
Oh, that's
Yeah, they had the reward strip on Monday, most
That's
of them,
awesome.
and then they had Seaside yesterday.
Wow.
So,
They're
So
travelers.
good.
yes.
That's cool. You wait for those things.
This one for you. And 20. Okay, thank you. Can you pass those down to Marissa?
Sure.
All right, thank you all.
Okay,
Um, 20 and 10.
you just want to start, take one,
10,
pass it
yep.
down. Yep. There's a lot of papers there.
20. 16 is the one they still need to give us. Thank you. Okay, there's one. Pass it now. Okay. There's 12 and pass it down. 18. Pass it down.
Very efficient.
Jeez, Lilo. Do your pie.
That's kind of common.
Here's your next one.
There you go. And then addendum.
Oh, I just take a stack.
Oh, we'll
Take a stack.
Yeah, it's stacking. We're stacking.
We had every intention of making time.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Salary
got
schedule.
Stack
Enough
away.
time.
Great.
Like this week, not enough time.
Salary schedules.
We understand on that one.
Oh, this is the stack.
Mm-hmm.
This is all 3 pages. This is all.
Do you want to go in order, Emily?
What, can we go over who's here today? I wasn't here the last meeting, and then I introductions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have 2 18s.
Uh-oh. Sit down next to 18. Here's an extra
If I counted
18.
right,
All right.
there's one set of extras.
And do you want to go in order, Emily,
Yes,
of the
we
numbers?
also, Jenny wasn't here last time, so if we could do introductions on your district side, so that she can know who everybody is real quick, that'd be great.
Oh, sure.
For our notes.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll start. I'll just I'm Marissa Franklin. I'm the Human Resources Manager.
Vicky Story, Assistant Superintendent.
Kim Kellison, Superintendent.
Tony Rosilas, consultant to the district.
Patrick Mulligan, Principal, Victor Point and Evergreen.
Phil Wiesner, board member.
Joe Traeger, Assistant Principal at the high school.
Derek Foxworth, board member.
Tom Andrews, Finance.
And then Jennifer Rios, ELD teacher on Mark Twain at Central Howell.
John Howard, Special Ed at Creek.
Matt Craig, teach business here at the high school.
Danielle Payne, Behavior Specialist, many sites. Erin Scott, Kindergarten at Mark Twain.
Frank V. Haffrick, OEA rep.
Emily Rayo, Middle School Social Studies at Butte Creek Scotts Mills and SFBA President.
Great.
Right. So we will start in order. Number 9 to begin with. Teacher evaluation, which we renamed educator evaluation in our slow change for all of them. 418. So this is the one that we brought to you all, that we wanted to have a chat about first last time before we had drafted language about the directed goals and expectations for improvement. But we did make one change to G before we get to that part. For evaluation materials, we added the words "in the working file" as a part of the evaluation materials, since that's generally what is used in our evaluations, is what's found in the working file. So that was just a quick change there. And then the directed goals for expectations and improvement. We like this option. We weren't sure if we were a little unclear on the intent last time, if it's the warning with the intent of they can meet their goals, if it's considered a warning towards a PAI, but it's the goal they meet these goals and they don't have to make that step, or if it is a step before the warning, before a PAI. So we just put it there at the end. We're willing to move it if there's a different spot where you think it fits better. So directed goals are treated as a pathway for support and guidance for educators to improve performance in the instructional excellence. So directed goals should be developed in collaboration with the educator supervisor, assistant superintendent, and the educator. Directed goals will serve as a written warning before being placed on a plan of assistance of improvement. The intent of these directed goals is to prevent the need of an educator to be placed on a PAI. And then we listed out the included elements that we felt like we've seen across the directed goals that we've seen so far, and sort of just explaining what each of one of them is. So the actual goal that they need to meet, the activities that they need to do in order to improve and meet that goal, the evidence or student work product to support what the district assistance and support will be for that educator, the measurable outcomes, as well as the timeline, and the summative evaluation decision. So these were all requirements that were already listed in Massachusetts Association of Teachers has a document that is very similar to this language that we took from as a starting point for all of us.
Cool.
Any questions from our team? We good?
Did they have any, let's say on the timeline, did they have a not to exceed like amount of time on theirs, or is it just kind of open-ended, whatever you decide at the time?
It's open-ended because if it's starting in, October, but it's the end of the year evaluation, not till June, like then that's kind of a bit of a long time,
Yeah.
So we left it open-ended to be discussed and decided.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
All right, number 12. So for A, we added in that following school board approval, and the first contracted workday of the school year, the district shall not revise the calendar in a manner that increases, decreases, reschedules, or reassigns employee workdays or obligations, except as expressly authorized under the Emergency School Closures, Article 13. I know that there was a lot of conversations and talk that happened when we added back in those early release days mid-year. It was grateful for the time, but we, in the future, want to make sure that we just have our calendar established at the start of the year for us and for families and everything.
Yeah, that was at the request of teachers, though. That
I know, but
is
we-
how that started.
I know.
I just want to make sure everyone's
But we would like to
clear on
have a
that.
game plan beforehand and not have to do that again.
Yeah, I
It's
would like
fair.
to not do that
Yeah.
again either.
So, and then, of course, making that exemption for if there's an executive order that, blows all that up.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll have some rules on that pretty soon.
And then we just updated the chart there to match what our calendar is for next year with the difference of PD days. And then for B1, we scratched out what was just applicable for last year's calendar.
Oh, yeah.
And then 2, we just made that permanent. It seemed like that worked well for our members. That allowance in there that we built in for making up for weekly early release time for people that need to meet. So otherwise, that number 2 language is the same from what we negotiated last year. And then in 3, we changed non-student contact days to specifically say educator-directed work days. Tony, I know we had talked about this last year about needing to define what an educator-directed workday was. So this was the definition we came up with, that each educator shall determine their work for the day. No meetings or trainings shall be scheduled on educator-directed workdays. Just encasing the time of those 2 days that we get a year to make sure that they are strictly what the teacher needs to do and get done. And then 4, since we don't have the weekly early release time, we just scratched that out. So we just said the early release days shall be used for in-building work, which will be mutually identified and agreed upon between building administration and the teacher leadership, department heads, head teachers, et cetera. And then C, we did an overhaul. There were some complications, I will call them, that came up last year with our attempt to, or this, oh gosh, it was just this year, adding in directions around after school and evening activities. So this is what we came up with, that occasionally educators may perform responsibilities beyond the regular workday as required to fulfill professional obligations, right, such as faculty meetings, parent meetings, and conferences. Prior to the start of the in-service week, principals shall identify recurring billing events that have traditionally required staff participation. Each dates of such events shall be communicated to both supervisors and staff. Staff shall receive no fewer than 30 calendar days notice of any change to scheduled event dates, except in the circumstances beyond the administration's control. By the 3rd week of September, the district will provide the SFEA president with a list of event dates in each building. After 3, new evening events or beyond workday expectations require demonstrated need and a careful consideration of staff impact. Proposals may be reviewed with faculty via SFEA building representatives and approved by a 2/3 majority vote of building educators. The SFEA exec team will facilitate voting in buildings without representatives. So our original language before last year had in sort of that staff consensus and input in establishing it. We brought that back, but in a little bit more of a formalized way, so that all staff can have their voices heard before a decision is made. Any questions in the first half? This is a long one.
So everything we have established now would not be considered new, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, especially in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The K-8 buildings they're very active, like.
Yeah, the list that I already had, like, those would be already established. New would
Okay.
be like if the high school wanted to try and require graduation attendance again, then that would go to the staff for a vote for input.
What if, Emily, what if in year one, there's an activity that's in, or actually, let's say their current year, there's an activity that's in place. It's been kind of common, but let's say for next year, they don't have the activity in, but by year two of the contract, they bring it back in. Is it, like a night activity? Then is it considered new again? Or does it just follow under the notice piece of the, prior to the start of the school year?
Do you have an example of what that might be?
Well, actually, I do have one example. So let's say, for example, this year, we did have Reading Under the Stars, wherever at Victor Point. The previous year, I was told there actually was, when we had that freak snowstorm that came later in spring, so that was actually canceled that year.
Okay.
So maybe it was planned, but did not occur. So would that be considered reoccurring then if it didn't happen in the year one of the contract, year two? With that language?
It's on schedule, the previous
Yeah.
year and canceled for weather.
Yeah, I would say that would still count then. Yeah, if it just got canceled because of, if it was an event that was completely removed from the calendar because it just wasn't on the calendar at all and added back, then I think that's where we would be interested to see some sort of language to account for that, if that's the case. But like if Reading Under the Stars wasn't even on the calendar for last year versus just canceled, but it had happened the year prior, and then again this year, I feel like would be open to an allowance for that if that, I don't know how often that's happened though.
And is it based on, will the event be determined by the true nature of the event or simply the title of the event? So let's say Patrick's Reading Under the Stars turns into, I don't know, Reading with Kermit. But it's the same
I would
format,
say
right?
it's based off of like the expectations of what staff are required to do that time.
Okay.
If it's Kermit instead of Stars, it's the same event,
Okay.
right? If they're required now to spend an extra hour with Kermit in addition from beyond what was normally required for Reading Under the Stars, then I think that's where the staff impact should come into play.
Okay.
Well, and graduation was presented to the union, both to building representatives and to the union leadership.
It did not get staff input though. And it also it didn't follow the timeline. That was the reason why it wasn't required originally.
I would argue that it's not a new event.
But it would be a new event that would be required for staff attendance.
Okay, so it is a little bit more based almost on like if it wasn't something that was done in the year previous, then if it comes in, it is a new event.
Okay, I just want to be clear because I guess maybe I really shouldn't say what I think about that.
We'll review it.
Yeah, I don't think you
We
need
will
to.
review it, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll
I don't
review
want
and
that.
and discuss.
Yeah,
Okay?
we will.
Yeah, well, just a new event, so, we talked about the in-service week, right? And being aware of, like, before in-service week, we're gonna let people know what the required events are. So a new event for the year would also need to be, this is gonna be new this year, informing staff the week before in-service or before in-service week. If there's an idea that's presented, and maybe even staff are presenting that idea, we want to do this, and it turns into we would like this to be a required evening. And we're like 30 days out, 60 days out, we'll try to have a runway. Is number 3 allow for implementing new things in a year, like when the year's already started? So going through the process, including the leadership of the union, and then even having the support of the SFEA executive to run a vote, hear the voice, or are we talking the new events would have to be presented the year before the year starts?
It would just be that they would need to be communicated before the start, rather than, like, the decision, like, we're not gonna expect teachers to come in and vote on something before they're required to be back. So that it just needs to be identified before in-service, and then.
Well, I think
the vote
Joe's point would
happens
be,
after.
let's say leadership in November came up with a really great new idea that they wanted to potentially look at. Could they bring it through section 3
Mid-year.
mid-year
Yeah.
for an event in May, but granted pre-service week notification, but could you follow, am I right, could you follow 3 from November?
Yes and no. I mean, I would never want to make anything requirement, like mid-year, but if it was that caliber of an event, like is number 3 open to that communication and implementation?
I guess I would need an example to see what would be so.
I can-
We did Dragon Preview Night at Dallas, and we added it mid-year. So we added it like in January, where we were gonna have a transition night for kids to come in for like incoming 9th graders.
Okay.
And we had, each building department had a teacher present to kind of talk about their electives, and, we do a similar thing already in here, but this is just an example. We added that in January. We did not know we were gonna do that until we'd done all that work with the Center for High School Success in the fall, and then we're like, oh, we need some transition work. So we added that mid-year.
For me, I love a process, and I love communication and voice, right?
Yeah.
So number 3 doesn't tell me that it has to be something that we agree upon and communicate before in-service week. And then, so for me, I would just like to know if it's the year's already started, it's a no, so don't even go there. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to follow a process if that door is open, right?
I would have to talk to my team about that before I give you a
absolutely.
response, so.
There
we can
are
talk
some,
later
there
on.
are, I could also provide
Just
some
to confirm.
not so fortunate situations that I've experienced in my days where that happens.
Well, and you might get, like, if I was the building principal, be like, ooh, what do I need to put on this list before the ends? Like I would be trying to come up with like things that I might need, like it would make me all anxious as a building principal that I wouldn't know what I needed to put on prior to in-service, because if there was some project we were working on or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would want to make sure that was identified. So I might put, other transition project first, it might not be described perfectly if you had it where it was limited.
Yeah, if you have other ideas of how to rephrase it, we're open to
We can
counters.
counter on that.
Yeah, and the example I was going to give was the unfortunate situations where something very significant happens during the school year, in which case the faculty, and it may be very relevant to have an evening event added. A few examples I can give that I've experienced is a mid-year administrative change, and they decided to have a parent forum night to come in and have that discussion, and that was added mid-year. God forbid, but if there is a significant safety or criminal event or something that happens like that, I've also experienced that, where then the team decided, and this was team being both teachers and administrators, decided as part of trying to fix the culture after that bad event, that they needed to come together and have the opportunity for that local school community to engage in a dialogue at the very minimum, but also really culture building activities again, and that was an evening event.
I will say that had some membership help with this language. I think that was the spirit of number 3, was to have a process to add things in as, to have a conversation if something seems necessary to both parties, then let's have a way to.
Absolutely love the process. I think it would have been helpful this year. You go back to the graduation thing, it was just weird. There was language in here that the new team wasn't aware of. So we go back, if we had a process, I think it would have been a much better rollout.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Educator.
And then H is the next significant change beyond all of the educators. So H1E, adding in that itinerant employees shall not be assigned routine building supervision duties, including but not limited to recess, cafeteria, hallway, bus arrival, or dismissal duties, except in emergency situations or by mutual agreement. We had a few of our itinerant specialists be told that they were required to do recess duty and were on a weekly schedule, but then they were scheduled, it was when they weren't scheduled to be in that building that day. So we just want to make sure that they are exempt from those requirements, unless it's we're understaffed, can you fill in for this one recess duty today? That's where we add into the by agreement.
Okay.
did miss one change under E6. Since we have moved to, we're likely looking at least for the next 2 years, those wonky calendars with additional professional development days. We changed the percentage to 30% of in-service workdays. It works out to the same number of PD hours allowed during a 4-day in-service week. Yeah.
Oh, because we added it.
Because we added a fifth
Yeah,
day.
yeah, got
Yeah,
it.
and then it looks like next year's calendar will probably be the same way since Labor Day is late again.
Similar, yep.
Yeah.
So it works out to the same amount of hours though
Yeah,
that is
gotcha.
still
I
allowed.
got you.
Okay, back to the other page, my bad. So I in 1. We did not change the number of days for ELA teachers, but we did add in for social studies / history teachers because they also have a significant amount of writing that gets graded as a part of the social studies classes, especially, and for teachers that are teaching, like in K-8 buildings that are teaching ELA and social studies combined together. They don't necessarily qualify for the ELA extra days to grade because they teach 2 sections, not 3, but they are also teaching social studies. And then our history teachers still also have a lot of essays that come with their final exams as well to grade. So just allowing another writing heavy area to have those access to those grade days. And then 2, we also added in advanced placement teachers, since they are not all included in the ELA or social studies category, whose daily teaching schedule includes at least 1 advanced placement class, will receive a full day substitute teacher on 3 occasions per school year for grading and/or scoring student work. Requests for specific dates shall be granted unless operational needs of the building or lack of available substitute coverage prevent approval. And they must be approved by the building principal as well. So, yeah, we have several AP teachers that have, again, weren't an ELA teacher, but still have a lot of grading that comes with and scoring and thoughtful feedback that's required as a part of AP courses.
Some of their
that they wanna
class
be able to
numbers
meet.
are super low though, like 11, 12, 14, like class size is really low in some of those areas. But we can talk about that.
Okay.
Question that is a hypothetical. So then AP, let's say Lit or AP Lang or AP Psych, would they then qualify with updated language both under I1 for 4 and then under I2 for an additional 3? So it'd be 7.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
And then caseload managers in J. We added 2 days to both K-8, K-5 schools as well as for SMS and the high school. Our SPED numbers and our ELD numbers have gone up significantly since we added these days in a couple of years ago. So there's a lot more required paperwork that they're now doing. Our caseloads are growing rather rapidly, and they need the time to be able to get caught up on their IEPs. I think almost all classroom teachers can tell you who've been in IEPs just about every day before and after school this last month. And they're the ones that have to do the paperwork for all those. We just have to sit in the meetings. But we also added into that as an alternative to the release days, that a case manager may elect to compensate required paperwork or other special education compliance activities outside of the contracted workday. They shall be compensated at their per diem rate for approval of time worked up to the equivalent of the number of hours represented by the 3 or 4 workdays. A case manager may utilize release time, compensated after work hours, or a combination of both. The provided total benefit does not exceed the equivalent of those 3 or 4 workdays. So, some of them find writing sub-plans, especially like our functional skills and basic skills classrooms, writing sub-plans and finding a sub for those classes to do paperwork is next to impossible. So they would rather just stay late till 7 o'clock at night or work on their weekend to get their paperwork done rather than having to take that release time. So it allows them to get compensated then in a different way to be able to still be able to access those days.
Does that reflect input from the social studies and English teachers as well? I'm just wondering why that wouldn't apply to them to have that option to be compensated to work
We're
out
more
beyond
than
their
open
day?
to it.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, and we just have it, we were just basing off of what we had had.
Okay.
Because it's a little harder for sped than it is for a regular classroom to get a
I
sub.
just remember
but
hating writing
we were-
sub
yeah.
plans and
No, I-
hating to be away
I'm
from my
right there
kids.
with you.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
Although a lot of times during release time, we're doing data dives and
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have also added in K. And we took this adjusted from a couple of districts around the state regarding classroom temperature, especially as we start earlier now or going later with the classroom temperature, starting school in August with no AC, which hopefully a passed bond will make this article null and void.
Yeah, just so you know, that would take like 4 to 6 years
I know.
to get all the HVAC.
It's a place
If
to
we-
start.
If we pass a bond.
If, I know.
It's kind of a process.
I know. So this is, these are based off of OSHA's numbers and temperature requirements, but they don't apply, those temperatures don't apply to classroom teachers or classrooms, environments. So below 60 degrees, classroom shall be relocated or moved to an alternate temp until this temperature reaches at least 60. Above 80 degrees, the classroom shall be relocated or instruction moved to an alternate space. Above 85 or below 55, it shall be considered unsafe for occupancy and immediately vacated. The district shall provide prompt corrective action, including but not limited to HVAC repair, portable heating and cooling unit equipment, fans, relocation of students and staff, or schedule adjustments. When the forecasted outdoor temperature is over 100 degrees, they'll plan a relocation or schedule modification.
I think OSHA and OAR 437, it's actually 90 degrees, not 80.
I believe it's the 80 in the heat index, and we had a discussion about how complicated that can get in. Because they're like
Humidity
ranking
or something like that, is that what you're talking about?
the combined temperature and humidity. OSHA has like a chart.
The heat index is
yeah.
like,
Because OSHA talks about language of providing water and some other stuff, safety-wise for daily, but it's above 90 that you actually then get into the required action.
yeah, I believe that's correct. too.
Okay, that's not what we find, so we can look into it a little bit more then. Any
And
questions?
OAR,
other questions?
OAR 437 is the Heat Index Act or something of Oregon, if you want to look at that.
Any other questions on 12?
Questions, Joe? Okay.
All right, 18. So we took a stab at trying to better clarify the difference between opening versus vacancy based off of our conversation from last time. So an opening, member is leaving or newly created teaching assignment, which is available for transfer opportunity by current staff, meaning, going off of A, that it's not eligible for transfer if it happens after the start of the school year for a position. And then vacancy, which is not eligible for transfer by current staff, which remains unfilled after transfer requests or by current staff that have been processed. So to kind of clarify, hopefully, the difference between there for everybody. And then on C, that's Act 1, that's at the top of the next page. Basing off of that conversation we had last time too, that for the application process, they just need to submit an cover letter to HR, as well as an opportunity to update any credentials obtained since their employment. We left the HR vague in case that's an email or it's the portal or whatever system is being used year to year for that. And then E1, we just updated the 750 number to match the new professional development that we just agreed to be 750 as well. And then F3, we just struck out that 3-year look back because it's been more than 10 years.
Okay.
And then 5 on the back, again, just updated the set to 750.
Can you on this one, Emily, explain a little bit more in detail what you mean by a transfer opportunity, the availability for a transfer opportunity by current staff? What would be a situation where it is available for a transfer opportunity? When would it be that it's not?
Oh, so you're asking when it would not be available?
Yeah, so number A, because or B1, because B1 you could read it in one way,
Well,
where basically everything would be then an opening then, because almost every opportunity could be a
Right.
transfer opportunity.
But,
I mean, so I want to know where's the limitation on that?
The limitation that we saw was the practice of the district not to grant transfers after the start of the school year in paragraph A. If that's not a limitation, then we could strike our language.
Okay. So you're back using some of the pieces of B, or I'm sorry, of number 2 to help define back what number 1 opening is. Okay. I just want to make it clear, but if you read it just on its own language, right, it can make it sound like everything's in.
Correct.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay.
Class size. So we reworked the language in B there for the opening paragraph, that the district will publicly establish class size targets for K-12 classrooms and specialists before the start of the school year. In the event a classroom educator's class size or specialist caseload exceeds the established target, the affected employees shall be eligible for a salary increase or other agreed upon, compensation adjustments in accordance with the process outlined below. And then the process stayed the same except for giving a timeline on the class size appeals. There's been questions about the deadline and payout of when's the last time to be able to submit the class size requests, and when does it get paid out, and how many times do we need to reconvene the class size committee? I know I've copied a lot of emails this year. So we added in all educator appeals must be submitted by the last Friday in February. The educator will submit their appeal in writing to HR, and the committee will meet once a year in March to reveal appeals to determine which educators qualify for the stipend, which will be paid out on the next payroll. So that way we can just sit down at one time and do it all at once and then be done.
So if the situation creating the overage happened after March and there's no more committee meetings, basically, is that in effect putting in a deadline by which it's determined that your class size is above target?
So if you got 5 kids in March, then you just.
Because, in our district, we've had a few times, even I recall, where that's happened. So, I just bring it, maybe you don't have an answer, but I just bring it up as a consideration.
That's a good question, thank you.
Okay.
And then we struck out 3 because we struck out the limitations of the pool.
Yeah, right.
We've had this language since 2022, and we have yet to actually exhaust that pool, but we've got a lot more class size overages since we started the limitation on the pool.
Okay. Any questions? Okey-doke.
All right, insurance. This one it's a quick and easy one. It's just what we would like to be added for insurance over the next 2 years. So we would like to see an increase to $1,825 for next year, and then $2,728 an increase to $1,900, so that we can stay ahead of the annual insurance increases of the. And then opt out as well, increasing those too, since it's a lot cheaper for you all to have them opt out than it is to increase that amount so that more people choose to opt out than in homes. Make it more enticing.
Okay.
Oh, that's it for insurance.
Questions on that one? We're good? All right. '23, right? Yeah.
23, yep. So Matt is gonna take 23.
Okay, it's 23, employee compensation. So we switched the years, and then traditional and peer salary schedules will increase by 6% COLA, and then for 27, 28, increasing those by 4% COLA. So those are the changes for A. And then in D, there's just one little thing in there, the March paycheck will be paid on the Friday prior to spring break.
Shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, that's good. That actually cost us $1,000 in bank fees to pull that early like that. So it's good to have it in here so we can set it up right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then G, the extra pay for extra duty. These amounts have just been updated to reflect the COLA amount at the beginning there under A. So for 26-27, from 23-25 to 24-65 for supervision, and from 31-04 to 32-90 for extended contract time. And then 27-28, it is 25-64 supervision, 34-22 extended contract. And then the rest, let's see, we added an article, or not an article, but K here, athletic stipend guidelines. So we weren't really sure how it's decided what teams get what stipends, and so we decided to go to non-cut sports because those are the ones where the numbers vary. So I talked to all the coaches.
That's really validating, because the amount of discussion we had.
Well, and then
It's like where you don't cut athletes, so like there's
Yeah.
like, sometimes there's like 100
So like
people on the
basketball
football
is
team.
gonna have freshman, JV, and varsity. They're probably gonna carry about 12 a team. So they're always gonna be in the mid-30s, right? Yeah, some sports are non-cut sports, so the numbers can.
And then, and then in transparency, I know over the last year or two, there's been more infusion or interest in community members to help support some athletic positions that the athletic department has started engaging in. So when you laughed about the athletics thing, it's kind of a quagmire, but
I look down there on the football field, I'm like, who are all these people? What are they doing?
Yeah,
This is a
I
ton of
looked
them out.
for
I mean,
something that kind of would indicate, how many for each different sport and where I couldn't find anything. So I just kind of talked to different coaches. I didn't actually talk to the tennis coaches, but I did talk to the other program coaches of the non-cut sports. So basically, in terms of the amount of stipends, football head coach and one assistant coach for every 12 athletes, cross-country head coach and one assistant for every 20 athletes, wrestling head coach and one assistant for every 15 athletes, swimming head coach and one assistant for every 15 athletes, track head coach and one assistant for every 20 athletes, and then girls and boys tennis head coach and one assistant for every 20 athletes. And those are based off a number of different supervision needs, safety needs, just kind of each sport is slightly different in nature. Like I know, like track, for instance, right? Track, I think, took 36 kids to state, but they all do different events and have different, their event coach is obviously going to go there with them to coach them. So anyway, that was kind of how we came up with that. And then extended season, so.
Matt, real quick. I just want to note the supervision, we started for the number of assistants, we started with the board policy for field trips that requires the number of supervision. It's 20-1 for high school for supervision. So that's what we started there with what was recommended if you're taking kids on a field trip. We feel like it should be the same then if you're taking them on an away game. We're not sure how that would be different, and then accounted for the danger level with wrestling and swimming for drowning and football for contact sport. So there was a bit more supervision. Okay.
I just don't know what the cost would be for this, so we'd have to figure it out.
And then extended season, proposed changing it from 2% a week of the stipend to 10% a week, and then adjusted some of the numbers in terms of what coaches are eligible to receive that. Because like I know, like wrestling, they go and they stay overnight, and they were, you know, it was a struggle supervision-wise in terms of how many coaches they had and how many kids they had taken, and just happened to be in different places at once. So we were trying to put some language in that could alleviate some of that pressure. And then N, at the bottom, the longevity stipend shall be paid in the final regular payroll of the contract year in which the employee completes the required years of service.
What's the change from?
It's just an addition. I think it was, from what I had heard, the longevity stipends have been paid. I mean, I haven't been here long enough to get one, but had been paid at different times. So some people got them at the beginning of the next year. Some had gotten them at the end of that contract year. So just kind of trying to make that more
Put the number on
uniform, I
it, yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah, some people have gotten it on the anniversary of their hire date, others have gotten it on the anniversary at the end of that contract over the years, depending on who's in HR.
Gotcha.
So this way we can clearly state.
Cool. Questions on the language itself before we get to the schedules?
I guess it would be helpful to know, if you can kind of lay out the methodology, kind of the specific data numbers that you guys used, what's behind the 6% and the 4%?
Well, we're not on that one yet, are we? Are we on compensation?
Well, yeah, it was a COLA.
Where'd it go?
And A, the
Oh,
COLA,
right,
the
right,
6% and
yeah.
4%.
I had a quick question on K, if you want to go through that. Just Matt, on the coaches, you said you talked to most of those coaches. When you go head coach K plus one assistant for every number, do you know, did you gather any of the ratio of how many current assistant coaches are being paid by the district versus volunteer? You know, because when I was coaching for like 6 years, I was a volunteer coach.
I'm not certain on how many volunteer coaches each program has exactly. No,
There haven't,
I'm not.
there's several.
I know
I
there's
just
quite a
wondered what
few
that-
in every
Yeah,
sport.
we
I
got
know.
I don't know
there's
the
quite a
current number of paid assistant coages, but I'm wondering if that would just be a significant
We'll get
increase.
that.
Marissa has it.
Okay,
We'll get that number,
thank you.
and we will also talk with the athletic department to better
Yes,
understand
yeah,
all the
again,
volunteers.
Gotta talk with
And
them about it. I just didn't see anything in there that kind of
No,
really laid out like, well, here's how many you get and why, and
I have
Okay.
that picture, yeah, thanks.
I do have all of the volunteer coaches on.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's great. And did they answer Tom's question?
Yeah, but we still have Tom's question out there. Can you help us
Yeah.
understand a little bit the 6% and 4%, to put it in context?
Part of it is member input, part of it is what we've seen other units negotiating around, and part of it is also to make up for the 7 furlough days we took a couple years ago that people still have not financially recovered from.
Other questions? Okay.
All right, so we have extra duty. Up again, applying the same, whatever adjusted wage increase we end up agreeing on. We just made 3 adjustments to, what?
Our proposal for 23, for the cut sports, we missed a piece.
Oh, we did.
So for the, it should read for the cut sports that you have a head coach and then an assistant for every team that's fielded. So if you have varsity baseball, for example, currently they have 3 teams and 3 paid stipends, whereas, so you're sending a JV, you have a varsity assistant and Colton, for example, and he's sending a JV and a freshman team with 1 paid stipend coach. So we're asking for a head coach and an assistant for each team that's fielded. So if you have 2 baseball teams going or 2 softball teams, you'll have 3 stipends. If you have 3 baseball teams, you'll have 4.
Are they just missing on the non-cut section?
No,
Yeah,
baseball would be a
what's
cut
the language?
sport.
Oh, it is a cut
should-
sport.
It's on that back page and it
Oh.
didn't get highlighted, put in red the way it should. So we can adjust that and reprint it.
Why does the dance team only have a head coach only?
That's just the current, that's what's current.
There's like 40 kids on there.
Yeah,
That's the current.
and I know,
Well, that's kind of the conversation we want to start, because there's no, there's no groundwork for it. It's just kind of, well, that's what we did in 1998, so.
There's currently 1 stipend coach and 2 volunteer coaches.
Yeah, they have volunteers.
For dance, there's 2 volunteer coaches.
Yeah.
Where's Chera? Where's Chera?
What you're saying is like baseball should be red right here, because it's a change?
We should, yeah, we need to, if we caucus, if we
60
adjust
plus
that
kids.
and
Yeah.
get back to you guys.
Okay.
OSA, the 65 plus.
Yeah, the choir should be different too. I mean, like, if you're gonna do this across, I mean, if this is how you wanna do this, I would think you would, like, I don't see cheer on here. So like, we actually added a stipend for cheer so they could cheer during winter. So like, we did that, you know, we asked, I mean, I approved that budget item. So, and I believe they cheered all winter.
no, I have no issue with making some adjustments and adding things to that.
Well, I mean, I want it needs to be equitable. It's a Title IX concern if it's not. So if you say the football team has 50 players and they need 7 coaches, but you send the girls' dance team with 1 coach, or the girls' cheer team, which is huge, with 1 coach, you're violating Title IX, in my opinion, because
Well,
they're supposed to.
There's a safety difference. I
And a
mean,
safety.
We have to account for that. too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have to do analysis under the 2 key factors, which is one, access, and the other one is accommodation. And it's really, the violation is when either of those 2 factors are violated, right? And some of that does come into the nature of the sport. Primarily, though, the big one on access, though, is the number of people you have involved.
Plus the safety concerns for
Yeah.
it. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. That's gonna
Okay.
require Jonesy to join our conversation, Andy Jones.
Yeah, and I don't
Okay.
know how cheer hasn't been on there, because it wasn't in our contract last year for cheer.
Well, no, and
so-
like when we did fall season and then there was no coach's stipend the first year I was here for competition cheer in the winter. And so
Okay.
I had Andy add it because the kids need it. So it's about what's good for kids.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that might be why,
so,
since
I
it
mean,
wasn't
you know.
stipended before, that might be why it wasn't in the extended season area then.
I'm
Okay.
seeing high school cheerleading on the stipend
It's on the stipend schedule.
It's on the regular stipends,
It's
yeah.
on the sheet.
Oh,
It's
I'm
the
confused.
extended.
Entirely.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So are we now going to move to the extra duty salary schedule again? What was your comment on that?
So we are proposing to add in a Battle of the Books coaching stipend. This coaching is done, there is no stipend, and teachers usually do this either after school on donating their time, or do it during their lunchtime, depending on if it's the middle school or the elementary school level. They're donating their time as well as their weekend to go to the Battle of the Books competition.
So you're deleting the coordinator and adding the coach instead?
We're moving the coordinator up.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Coordinator-
Sorry, thank
coordinator
you.
goes
And then
from-
adding in the
Got it.
coach there.
Got it.
And then we also are moving the high school prom coordinator up a level as well. Yeah, that is, it's not just prom, it's the junior class advisor, it's all of the, like, ordering all of the swag and fundraising for it. It's a lot of work. I'm happy to send you the documentation it's currently Mary Rakin and has been for a very long time. The amount of work that she puts into that to make that successful every year is far beyond what she's currently paid for.
Okay, and on the record, so if you look at level 1, primarily they're head coaches, and then you list for drama and, well, I'm just getting clarification on some language that's already there because it's come up before. Head coaches for volleyball, football, wrestling, you know, a lot of the sports have the head coaches at level 1. And then you add 2, which aren't sports, which are you have the head drama advisor and the FFA advisor. Is there an understanding that each of those only has one person who's in that lead role, and then everybody else falls under the assistant role, which is at 70%? Because all the others are only one person's the head, right? So I want to make sure if we follow that reasoning, then we would say that the drama has and FFA have one head each, and then if there's an assistant, that's at the 70% rate.
Well, I put an asterisk because head teacher, I mean, would be one, and depending on, like, we would have 2 at Butte Creek if we had head teachers back, because we'd have an elementary and a middle school head teacher. So it's not necessarily just going to be 1, if you're saying that whole category is just 1.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and give,
Deleted
yeah.
teachers.
I mean,
We didn't do that. We haven't done that for 2 years. Is it
Yeah.
back on here? Where am
It's
I missing?
on there.
We never, the position wasn't eliminated, we just reviewed it.
We just didn't post it, okay.
Okay. Other questions on the extra duty schedule? Okay. Which one next, peer?
Yeah, we just called it Article X. And then
Okay.
the other 2, the peer scale and the peer transfer table, all just kind of go together with this article as supporting documents. So we started with taking the MOU in an effort to not have to renegotiate that peer MOU every single year. We would like to add peer into the contract permanently and formalize some more of the processes and sort of expectations of what is expected of the peer review team and committee and what is the responsibility of the district and the HR role in these, so there's not that confusion. So we took the peer MOU as a starting point and sort of just expanded in some areas that needed it. So the first beginning paragraphs there are the same as what's currently found in our MOU. And it's designed to incorporate the core values of Silver Falls School District and align more closely with professional development experiences that correlate to educator effectiveness, recognizing mutual partners and a commitment to communication and positive resolutions. You know, this has been going since 2016, and it has been very beneficial to the people that are on peer. And we agreed to evaluate the peer compensation model, recognizing that additional work and agreements may be required. Parties will establish parameters for implementing any changes and identifying mechanisms for terminating this work if both parties determine it if necessary. Again, those 3 paragraphs are already what's in our current MOU. Bless you. And then opt-in, opt-out. Any educator in the Silver Falls can opt into the peer model during open enrollment from October 15th through October 5th through October 15th, 2026. That's based off of what's currently in the peer handbook. I think it's October 6th and 16th in the handbook, but so just adjusting it there. Members on the peer model can opt out during an open enrollment period and return to the current pay scale without loss of wages. Again, that must be done by the 15th, or they remain on peer for the duration of the CBA. So there's no, like, you can't opt out in 2027. You're there until the end of the CBA, until we look at that language again. And then 2 and 3 and 4 are all what was already in the MOU that we agreed to last year. I believe most of that is what Marissa had adjusted anyway. And then the peer review committee, consisting of 6 members. The current handbook says 5 members, with one of those being a district employee. We did it 5 so that the HR could play less of a role in it, and it would be still an odd number if there was voting that needed to be done within the committee. So the one licensed educator will serve as the chair of the peer review team and will be directly selected by the HR director. 4 additional team members will be selected with equal representation. That should say 5. We did not math right. with equal representation from elementary, middle, and high school, and will be jointly hired by the HR director and peer review team chair, which is all what the current handbook says. Licensed educators will remain a member for the duration of the CBA, and then we add in allowances if for some reason that member leaves the district or changes, they were high school, now they're elementary or something, a process to address that and fill in any vacancy. They'll be filled as soon as possible in practice in accordance with the selection process procedures outlined in this article and remain the remainder of the unexpired term. Educators representing specific grade levels or disciplines may be invited to join the peer-reviewed team on a short-term basis to provide expertise in reviewing content-specific peer proposals and plans. So, if we've got our high school representative teaches math, but it's a CTE peer project, then they may not know the full extent of the benefits of that peer project. So, and then the HR director or designee will serve as a permanent, non-voting at-large member on the peer review committee to assist with communication during the opt-in period and will select the chair of the peer review team. So placing the onus and the rest of the running of the peer program on that peer review team rather than having to rely on the HR director's involvement to move things forward. They just have to worry about the communication. They've got the all list email access to that, and then that initial committee lead. Responsibilities. District will be responsible for placement on the peer salary schedule when an educator opts into peer, or placement on the traditional salary schedule when opting out. They will use the peer transfer table in the peer handbook to ensure proper placement. And the district will also make the necessary payroll adjustments when an educator has completed enough units of growth. We just can't do that. And then the peer review team will be responsible for leading the annual peer meeting after open enrollment is complete, as well as the 6 review cycles outlined in the peer handbook. The peer handbook itself shall govern the operational procedures of the peer program. The handbook may be amended as needed by the district and the peer review team to address implementation issues, clarify procedures, and improve program effectiveness. Handbook revisions shall not supersede or conflict with the terms of this collective bargaining agreement. Any change that impacts a mandatory subject of bargaining or modifies the provisions of the agreement shall require mutual agreement between the district and the association. And then compensation, again, it will not modify the CBA. In subsequent years, any cost of living adjustments will be applied to the existing salary schedule and will be applied to the peer salary schedule. The 26-27 peer salary schedule shall be adjusted to include percentage steps to align with the traditional salary schedule, which is what we have a draft of for you in that additional document. The peer compensation model incorporates specific criteria for step and level advancement. And then the termination language there is the same that's currently in the MOU.
Do you know how many employees we have on this system?
I knew this 2 weeks ago.
I would ask.
I knew, but can I get that information out to everybody?
Sure, I just was curious how many.
My brain
people
says
you were.
35-ish.
I want to
30
say
something.
it's 30-something.
Close enough. Thank you, okay. Close enough.
So the other 2 documents that are there is our proposed peer scale adjustments. We did not apply the additional proposed wage increases, but currently, the current peer pay scale has flat dollar amounts between steps, and a couple of years ago, we adjusted the traditional salary schedule to include percentages between steps. So the whole purpose of peer is a way to advance across the pay scale without having to go back and get a college degree. Almost all of our CTE teachers are on peer as a way to advance because they don't have a bachelor's degree. They have other licensure requirements that got their license. So for them to move on the traditional scale means them having to go earn a bachelor's degree and then also earn college credits beyond that. So this is sort of a lifeline for them to be able to advance. But as you move across the peer scale compared to the traditional, you then make more on the traditional because it's a percentage between steps instead of a flat dollar amount. So a couple years ago when we reworked the salary schedule, we had teachers losing anywhere between $100,000 and $10,000 by remaining on the peer scale compared to the traditional scale. So we want to adjust that and make sure that peer is still honoring the additional work that it does require to move across, and make sure that we can maintain it as a program too. So that was sort of our long-winded explanation there to try and explain. We are not math people, we are teachers. So we took a stab at it, Tom. And then I also just included the peer transfer table. So we made a note here. The peer transfer table is also outdated. It includes steps that we no longer have. So trying to make the peer transfer table match and be advantageous for peer was too much. So we just included it for convenience there.
The first number is the column.
What was that?
The first number is the column, so if it's 2, 3, that means column 2, row 3.
Correct.
Yeah, lane.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on peer?
I have one question on the peer one, and it's probably a little more rhetorical for you all to think about, and I think I have a feeling Emily knows what it's about. Is that in the 2 years that I was responsible for the peer model, there were a lot of times it was quite frankly like pulling teeth to get people, from the union to really do the role of really managing it and whatnot. And if it really is supposed to be a peer model, then we would need to make sure that there really is that leadership. Or in this case, Vicki cannot be calling every other week to try to get somebody, hey, we need to get a peer group together, we need to get a peer group together. And there were times where it was very challenging for me to get that group together. There were some transitions, some people hopped on the team, hopped off of the team. So I'm just bringing that up, that the administration of the program is not as necessarily as clean cut and as simple as it would look on paper. So
yeah, that's why we tried to build in those direct responsibilities, so that if it doesn't happen, it's on the peer review team. But also, I know some of the challenges were miscommunications about how much, previous administrations were heavily involved in peer, and then other administrations were very hands-off, and so there was a miscommunication in what those expectations actually were. And it is it is not just union members, it is the whole bargaining unit that is involved in the peer review team as well. So it is open to that. So if you have other ways that you would want to see that outlined and responsibilities divvied up, we're more than willing to see it.
Do we have a sample district that has a real good process lined out?
We are very unique in that this is pretty much the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is what we want to make it.
But it's never been in the CBA before?
It has never been in the CBA. It has been an MOU.
It's
since
always been an
2016.
MOU.
This is an attempt to get it
This is an attempt to get it in the contract, to have one less MOU to do every year.
That makes
Yeah. So that way, hopefully it makes it seem like a more formal process for everyone too, having it in the CBA versus as an MOU that may or may not exist.
Okay. Questions from the group? Okay, this is, as you might imagine, this is a quite significant set of information here. And a lot of it, I know at least that we're going to need to talk with several departments. Athletics department is one of them, of course. Tom is going to have to do some numbers crunching on some of the language pieces. We're going to need to get some research on some of the specific areas, like for instance, special ed. Also then thinking about some of your proposals talk about where language teachers, right, or now history teachers might get a particular benefit from the agreement. There's that piece about advanced placement and how that might come together. So there's a fair amount of research we're going to need to do on this. I also know too that you've had a pretty substantial request to the district for information.
Yep.
That's come through. And knowing that we're already at 5:22 or so, we'll definitely be meeting, but I doubt that we're going to be able to get, any kind of significant that we would want to bring to you Because quite frankly, some of these pieces in compensation we know are also things that sometimes it's best to talk about them in together. So I would propose that we formally adjourn, so that way all of our guests are not, just here sitting around waiting for us to come back, because this would take, I would guarantee you it'll be at least an hour of work
Yeah.
to get something, if not more, right? But
You mean you want to let us go early in the last 2 weeks of school? We're fine.
okay, I'm just getting it on the record for everybody.
Tag, you're it, Tony.
Okay.
I did have one question. We do have the class size MOU that needs to be negotiated. Do we want to do that in here in our bargaining session and save everybody a meeting, or do we want to negotiate that?
We'll talk about that, because, the more you get language that's very specific in the contract that relies then on another set of language that's in a side letter, then there's sometimes it's benefit, usually early on when you're trying something, and then at some point it's better to not be in a side letter.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss that. Okay?
Sounds good.
All righty, so then we will see you, let's confirm. So the next meeting is June 22nd.
Yep.
And that is
10 to 12.
10 to 12. I know that because I made that extra drive. The website had it incorrect on today. It actually transposed the 2 dates.
Oh, calendar invite was right, though.
Okay, I put on the website because the public saw the website. So, okay, so in any event, I'm here, right? So we
Yeah.
made it, but I just want to make sure on the record so everybody knows, on the 22nd, 10 o'clock.
And are we still in agreement? We put an asterisk on that 12 of if we're making progress, we're willing to go later.
Oh, yeah, I work all day that day. I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
I can block it out.
We're more than willing. If we're working on quick, we're willing to stay.
That's a
to try
work
and get
session
stuff
board
done.
meeting. We could stay all night, Emily.
Okay.
Probably will be.
Work session.
Okay, very cool. Okay, thank you all. Take care.